Sarah, you should be the COO. You're not doing operations, you're doing everything related to the entire company. And that's the title you deserve. And then I turned it down.
The world is obsessed with fast-track success. It's easy to think that people become successful overnight. But let's face it, more often than not, what we see on social media is total BS. I'm here to look past the perception of perfect success and focus on life's detours, perceived mistakes, and even wrong choices, and understand the real road traveled up the career ladder. After all, we're all effing up. Sarah Moses is the Chief Operating Officer at Prefect, a global leader in Dataflow Automation. Sarah oversees finance, operations, legal, and HR functions. She is responsible for scaling the organization in addition to instilling the company's remote-first culture. Prior to Prefect, Sarah worked at ICONIQ Capital as a de facto chief of staff for tech's most prominent founders. Sarah graduated in 2013 from Colgate University with a BS in political science. While not working, Sarah rock climbs across the country. A mutual contact was mentoring her as a newish COO, and through their interactions, HR topics seemed to rise to the surface. That individual asked if I'd be willing to connect with Sarah. We immediately hit it off. Sarah takes life by the horns and ensures she enjoys every minute. In fact, she worked remotely, traveling nearly the whole US, staying in a different location about every month. I had a hard time keeping track. It was so impressive. Her vigor for life is evident in her personal and professional life, and it's infectious. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Deanne, for such a kind intro.
Why don't you chat a little bit about Prefect, what you do for Prefect, and then we'll dive into questions.
Sure. So Prefect, Dataflow Automation company, we are on a mission to coordinate the world's data flow. We really consider ourselves the air traffic controller of the modern data stack. So what that means is you see all your data. You can see exactly where it's moving in between all the different players in the space, and you can also orchestrate it. So move your data where it needs to go and actually rely on it. So we're really a tool built for data engineers and data scientists, as well as data analysts. I joined the company at about 10 people. I joined because I've always been interested in how does something get built? A company is really just a collection of different people. So how do you build it towards a certain goal? And so my role is I oversee finance, operations, HR, and legal. But what I really consider it to be is just people and process. So how to use all the resources to really scale a company to achieve its goals.
Let's chat first about college. You're in college. You know you need a job. Your degree was in political science. When you were choosing that as your major, what were you considering as your future career?
So I actually did not consider my future career when I chose this major. Honestly,
Join the club.
I really just chose what was interesting to me, and why I chose political science isn't actually for politics itself, but I really just loved understanding, like, why do groups of people do what they do? What are the theories around it? Why do they interact in certain ways? I had no idea what application that would have at all, but it seemed intellectually interesting.
I can't help but think that it really ties into the intro you just gave us of your current job. Isn't that ironic?
It is honestly ironic. I cannot believe how well it worked out, but please note that it was by accident. This was not intentional.
We'd love to say that our 20-something-year-old selves were highly strategic, but here we are. What would you say approaching graduation, your confidence level was in your abilities and performance?
I didn't know what I was good at, so I just tried a bunch of different things. I was a pretty quiet and shy and introverted person. And so I figured a job actually where I could just be in the background, like crunching numbers or something, could make a lot of sense.
So thus takes us to wealth management. How did you end up at BBR Partners?
So at Colgate, it seems like everyone went into finance or law. It seemed those jobs also paid okay salaries. I was not interested in law. I honestly had a lot of trouble seeing what other options in life were even out there. And I liked numbers, so finance seemed interesting. And through a series of connections, found myself at BBR Partners, where I was an investment analyst meeting with a lot of different hedge funds.
How did you feel entering that role?
It is not where I excelled. It just didn't click. I did actually like the operational aspect, but a lot of the work was either incredibly routine and repetitive and like probably could have been automated, or on the investing side, my heart wasn't in it. Something just did not click in my brain talking to all these different hedge funds and figuring out which stocks to invest in.
How are you feeling inside about your future career?
It just really felt like a mismatch that made me completely question myself. In college, I did think I was at least like a decently smart person, but honestly, at this job, it just made me feel like I wasn't good at almost anything, actually, except for the operational aspect. I just found that part really fun. But it was pretty discouraging.
You decided to move on and you went to ICONIQ Capital. What took you there?
It was a role that was purely operational. So I was very excited about the opportunity. They had poached me from BBR, and the entire role was, can you do things well, efficiently? Can they scale? So I started out in a very junior operational role there.
As you started to get a bump in terms of title and get settled in the role, it looks like you were there for about 4 years. Did you feel like you were going places?
I did. I went from feeling very discouraged at my first job just because it was a mismatch to ICONIQ, where at first I focused a lot on all of the operational aspects. So can I organize how to pay hundreds of different property tax bills? Can I send out a $400 million wire transfer and not mess it up? As I got really good at that, and it became like pretty routine and easy, what I really wanted to do is help manage the relationships of some of our much bigger, like billion-dollar families, most of whom had their money from becoming pretty successful tech CEOs. And as I went through those promotions, I went from not just doing the ops part of it, but the more interesting intellectual level of how do you manage a team of experts to proactively get the right things done for these families that are all super smart, interesting people.
Would you describe the 4 years as positive?
Positive is like a little too nice for it. So I think if I was in an environment where everything was sunshine and rainbows every day, I probably wouldn't grow. It was a pretty tough environment where you really had to perform. And my boss was an incredible woman who was so invested in making me successful. So she pushed me really hard, which is positive, but she wasn't the type of boss to say everything's great. She would tell me not just what was wrong, but where I could do better every step of the way. And so it was positive because I learned a lot, but it was also very challenging. And I think that's why I was able to grow at ICONIQ.
What was your balance like between professional and personal while there?
I didn't have much of a personal life at that point. I let work consume me, which at a point I think was to my own detriment because I did stop growing personally. I felt like all I did was work from, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I really ignored the personal side of my life for a long time.
So did you feel like you were happy at that point?
I felt like it's what I was supposed to do partially. And I felt like it was what I needed to do to really grow and perform and just be better. I was also in New York City where it's a pretty intense hustle culture there.
Yeah.
So it was hard, but I felt like it was the thing to do that did make sense at the time, at least for the first few years there.
Talk to me about confidence level. So we touched on this briefly as it related to coming out of college and putting words in your mouth, but you were like, I was lost, didn't know what I was doing, went to finance. At this point at ICONIQ, near the end of the 4 years, did you see a progression as it relates to your confidence?
I did become much more confident. I was the type of person who was too scared to even speak up at a meeting. And my boss actually helped me overcome that fear and become much more of an outspoken person and a bit of a leader. And by the time I left, I felt like I was very good at what I was doing. But then it did start to feel like that's not the ultimate path I wanted to be on, which is why I decided to really revisit what is it that I want to do.
I have to double click on this. You didn't want to talk in front of people and your boss helped you. What were some of the things that you did to improve that? Dread.
So most people now at work and personal are shocked that I was a quiet person with not a ton of friends, always in the background. So I explicitly told her, hey, I want to be more of a leader. She said, well, you can start by raising your hand at a meeting. I was terrified. I would literally choke up. And so what she told me to do is just, Sarah, every meeting you go into, know who the speaker is in advance, understand the topic as much as you can, and just have an idea of a question. Doesn't have to be the world's greatest question. Just say something, anything, as long as it's not completely awful. And just give yourself a little check mark. How many meetings in a row can you go into where you say something? And then all of a sudden it became a habit and didn't really feel that hard anymore. Sort of when you do something scary that you think is scary and then you realize maybe it's not so bad, then all of a sudden, now I'm in a position where I actually mentor other people for how to speak up at a meeting, and it feels very comfortable to me. So she pushed me a lot on that front and really helped me hold myself accountable there.
I have to be honest, you're making it sound easy. Almost it happened overnight. Did it feel that way?
No. God, no. This was probably a 2-year process to get comfortable speaking at meetings. I read so many books about psychology. I read books about introverts. I had another mentor. So a lot of people helped me. What I gave you was the TLDR, but it took at least a couple of years to even be okay speaking at a meeting without feeling like I was going to pass out or cry in the bathroom or something.
So 4 years at ICONIQ, and then on your resume, you see we jump to Prefect, to head of operations. How did you land that next gig?
I felt like I was really good at what I did at ICONIQ, but it just didn't feel like that's where my heart was. And so I decided to quit, which is very hard because I love my boss and my coworkers. I had nothing in mind at all. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just jump into wealth management again without thinking about it. So I decided to just go to Asia by myself for a few months, just booked a one-way ticket, took a small backpack and a lot of bug spray. And I just decided to listen to whatever podcasts and read whatever books really interested me and sort of take that step back to figure out what is it that gets me going in the morning and not just fall into something else. And it turns out that company culture and how you actually build something was super fascinating to me, as well as a ton of books about psychology, historical fiction books about how societies formed over time. And through a series of connections, I met Jeremiah, who is CEO at Prefect. Within the first 5 minutes of meeting him, I knew I wanted to work for him. Basically, all he talked about was this one employee at this 10-person company who joined payroll. For some reason, the payroll company messed up the health insurance benefits. This person didn't have health insurance. Jeremiah was freaking out, did not know how to handle it, was devastated that this kid who joined his company didn't even have health insurance. And I don't know, I just knew he'd actually really care about people, and seems like he also wanted someone to actually execute on a bunch of things so he can go be the visionary CEO. And so it was a perfect match. Definitely a lot of luck thrown in there, I will say. I probably met about 50 people before coming to Jeremiah when I was looking for jobs.
I'm reflecting on this idea of getting away, separating yourself from the normal in order to collect your thoughts and get grounded. It sounds like that was instrumental to you.
Absolutely. I mentioned before, I totally put aside my personal life and didn't even know who I was anymore. What's my personality? What am I doing? What makes me happy? Had absolutely no idea. So I just spent basically 4 months pretty much alone trying to deep dive and figure it out because
Deep dive
I didn't
into
want
yourself.
It was kind of scary in there. But I didn't want to just keep doing things because that's what I should do. I lived in New York City. I worked in finance. I just kept doing things because that's what I was supposed to do. And it was like the easy next step, but none of it felt right. And I felt pretty unhappy.
Yeah. Sounds like autopilot.
Exactly.
You were at Prefect for 5 months and as head of operations, and then you're promoted to COO. Is that typical?
I guess Jeremiah has a lot of trust in me. So what had happened was I started out, took all the operational stuff off his plate. I will say it was actually kind of hard coming in at a senior position. Before in my career, I'd only started in junior positions where people told you what to do.
Yeah.
In this position, Jeremiah's like, hey, welcome to Prefect. These are our finances. These are our company goals. Cool, go for it. And that was it. So coming in at senior position was hard, but I did everything from our first budget to ordering the office bagels to baking into managers, showing appreciation for employees, building 90-day plans for people, all that stuff. We had one situation where I really jumped in, took control of it, gave the team a little lecture, fixed the whole process that touched the whole company. And Jeremiah told me that night, hey, Sarah, you should be the COO. You're not doing operations. You're doing everything related to the entire company. And that's the title you deserve. And then I turned it down.
Wait. What? You turned it down?
So for the past 5 years, being a COO was my dream job. And I actually said no. I argued with him for an hour. I said, first of all, my image of a COO is not a late 20-something woman who was hanging around Asia for a while. It's honestly someone who's more middle-aged, has some gray hair, is here to break some kneecaps. And I just didn't have the experience. I haven't done this before. And I told Jeremiah, hey, like, I love your belief in me, but there's probably someone else who's better out there, and it shouldn't be me. I don't want to mess this up for Prefect. This means too much to you for me to do that.
Wow. What was his response?
He just told me to go think about it, that he felt very strongly I should do this.
Okay, there's so much here to unpack. You had an image of who should be in the role, and you didn't fit that. So you didn't feel like you could take the role. You're invested in psychology, as we've learned. If you take a step back and you look at that, why were you so locked in on that one image?
That's really all I had ever known. And I can be like tough and aggressive, but I have to be, but that's not always really who I am. That's why I imagined as someone experienced, and I didn't have the experience. I think I was like 28 at the time. And I did not want to let Jeremiah down by messing up something big at Prefect. I was really scared of that. So that's why I said no.
Would you describe it as imposter syndrome?
Oh, definitely. I definitely didn't have the experience. So that part was accurate, but it was imposter syndrome. What actually convinced me to take the job was that afternoon, I happened to be meeting up with the founders of Compass Coffee, who are former Marines who led troops in Afghanistan. They're instrumental in like helping us build our culture and run a tight ship here. I told them, hey, Jeremiah offered me this position, but I said no, thinking they'd say, oh, that's really smart, Sarah. Good job. They said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you say no? This is your dream. So I explained, I don't want to mess it up. I can't pattern match myself with other COOs that I've seen. They said, Sarah, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You'll make really big mistakes multiple times, and that's okay. Just get over it and know that you're going to mess up and learn from it and fix it and move on. And they told me to march myself into the office back when we had an office the next morning and tell Jeremiah that I demand this job and I'm taking it now, which I did.
Did they basically slap you into shape? Were you ultimately convinced after that? Or were you still hesitant on the inside?
I was definitely hesitant. Having two Marines yell at you definitely does something.
That's what it took. It took two Marines yelling at you. Oh my gosh.
But I was scared. I was like, well, I can either do it or not. Am I going to let the fear hold me back? Figured worst case scenario, make some mistakes. At some point, I'm not the right fit. Maybe I help the company for a certain period of time, but like I'd rather try than never even have tried. That felt like giving up before I'd even started, which was silly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So now you've been in that role for almost 3 years. How are you doing?
This is my absolute dream. I know this sounds cheesy, but like I seriously wake up every day. I live in the mountains now, look at the mountains. And then I just cannot believe like I get to do this stuff every day. And the job really isn't just like HR, finance, legal. It's really just putting the right people into place, steering the ship in the right direction. I was scared to lead a team of senior people, which I now have reporting to me. I was scared to speak in meetings at one point. So I've done so many things that were really scary and they make me nervous at first, but then usually it turns out okay. I've definitely made mistakes, but it feels like this is the fit. My role now is honestly my best use case in like any professional setting. It feels really good. But you know what? Maybe after this interview, some new challenge will drop that I have no idea what to do. Then I'll cry in the bathroom again and I'll get it together. That's when I started to build my own team and the company really started to grow. And I knew I could execute by myself. That was fine. But Jeremiah once gave me feedback that hey, if you want people to do something, maybe be a little less blunt sometimes and help build consensus and frame things nicely. So he gave me that little nugget.
Wait, I just like to pause. That sounds like what did you say? Breaking kneecaps COO. And you're getting advice. That's amazing. You were assuming the role.
Exactly. And he gave me that piece of feedback. I was like, okay, for everything I do, there's lots of people involved. Lots of people have lots of feelings. So how can I build consensus for everything I need to do? Then I taught my team how to do it because people are excited to help build what they helped create. Like just telling people to do things, like that's not the type of culture I want. I want people to understand, why are we doing this? How is this helping move the company forward? So it's really about, in that time frame, when I learned the importance of framing and motivating and building consensus, that I started leaning into it. And I realized that I actually had a pretty natural ability for it.
And to think you turned down this job. You think of a time since you've been in the COO role where you had a dip, where you were like, God, this is it. This is what I thought. And now you look on it and you're like, that was a blip.
Yeah, I do have one. So last year we decided to acquire a professional services company we partner with a lot called Slate. It's a 7 or 8 person company. The executive team decided that we should acquire them. I was panicked because I knew that who's going to lead this acquisition, which is really just about people and culture and where they fit in. Knew it was going to be me. I've certainly never done that before. So I got off the call. I panicked, probably hyperventilated. It's fine. And then I actually talked to the person who mentored me and introduced us, talked to a couple other people, got it together, was still scared, thought if I mess this up, I'm ruining everything, but decided to use all my resources, dive in, pull it together. And the acquisition was so successful that some of our existing Prefect employees, when I asked them how they feel like it went, they said, oh, honestly, we didn't really notice. Just felt like a few more people joined the company that day. It didn't even register to them that the new company with its own culture slotted in that quickly.
What would you describe as your blind spot?
I can occasionally get a little bit ahead of myself. So if I have an idea, I think it's going to happen, I get so excited. I tell my team about it. They start working on it. Then I end up talking to someone else. I'm like, oh, uh-oh, that was not a good idea. But now I've already told my team this and they're already working on it. And then I have to go back and switch it. And so the reason I do that is I just get so freaking excited about things. I feel like a fire inside and I have to tell someone. So I've learned to be, or I try to be, I'm not always, you can ask my team this, but I do try to be a bit more patient before presenting information, because I know now that people will run with whatever I say, unless it's crazy for the most part, and they do push back a lot. And so I try to be much more careful now with, if I'm giving someone direction, make sure that's really where I want them to go, because that's also not fair to them. Like we've all had a boss who's like, do this thing, and then they change their mind. It's pretty annoying.
Looking back at your career, what do you see as the low point?
I would say pandemic was pretty rough. I know it was for many of us. So I had just moved to DC, only started maybe 4 months ago at that point. I had no friends in DC, really. I had just broken up with my long-term partner. This is like mid-February 2020. So the timing was not ideal.
Yeah.
My personal life was still pretty newish at Prefect. And we're looking at all our finances and we're like, oh gosh, what if we have to do layoffs? We did not have to do that, but every layoff scenario that I prepared just to have plans B, C, and D, I included myself in the chart. Because if you have a 5 or 6 person company, like you don't need me. You just need some engineers. That was not a very fun time. I think we're better because of it. But yeah, trying to lay myself off was not thrilling.
Why were you pushing the opportunity away?
I think I looked at it the same lens from before, as I just didn't want to let the company down. So when I initially turned down the role, it's because I felt like I wasn't the right person, which turned out to be incorrect. Glad the Marines yelled at me. And with this one, just logically, if you have a company of 5 or 6 people, Jeremiah can order the bagels. It's fine. He can create a process for something. And so I felt like it just wouldn't be necessary for Prefect, and it didn't feel right to make a plan that also didn't factor myself in, because I wanted to approach it as a COO, which is from the company's perspective, not from human Sarah's perspective.
What job decision lingers with you and makes you wonder if you should have handled things differently?
This is a lesson we learned a few times, mostly in the earlier days. When we would hire someone and it was clear they just weren't working out, like they weren't in their zone of expertise, it wasn't what the company needed, or they weren't coachable, or they were very disengaged, like whatever it was, I wish instead of beating around the bush or not being direct, we're just much more direct with people because no one wants to be at a place where they feel like they're not succeeding or doing well. That's not the type of culture I want. It's disincentivizing to them, like how I felt at my first job. It's disincentivizing to people around them who might be high performers, and there's someone who's not really fulfilling their role. And so I wish we'd just move more quickly for everyone's sake. And then given severance, letters of reference, help find them a new role, whatever it took. So I think sometimes we could be a little too overly nice, which was to the detriment of the other person as well as Prefect.
Mm. And you reference you in your first job. So are you, in a sense, saying that you wish someone had said, yeah, this isn't working out. It's not good for you. It's not good for us. And actually, us telling you this is the better thing. Is that what you mean?
I wish they'd maybe given me a different opportunity there. I love the ops stuff. The investment analyst side was just not for me. I felt like I couldn't really grow there and I wasn't growing. And upon reflection, I think they were maybe performance managing me out. I want my last performance review, but it felt mostly I wasn't the right culture fit for the company. Like my values and theirs just really didn't align. And that's fine. That totally happens. So I just wish someone had been more clear so I can just move on with my life more quickly.
Was there someone that you looked to as a model of success growing up?
I really love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She is just a total powerhouse. She's incredible. She's one of the funniest people who's ever existed, in my personal opinion. But what I love about her is that when she started on Seinfeld, she goes, I'm not going to wear tight, skimpy clothing like so many women on TV did. She's like, I'm funny. You are going to like me because I'm freaking hilarious. And obviously it worked out great for her. And then she's very creative. She blazes her own path, especially at a time when women didn't have quite as many opportunities there. And so I really respect her being quite the trailblazer and just doing anything to pursue her craft.
You spent some time across the country living in different places. What can you share about your current lifestyle that helps to ground you and advance you on your professional?
About a year and a half ago, I think it was, I guess early 2021, I'd been in my apartment alone for a year in the pandemic. Very depressing, not great. There were no new challenges personally. I was literally just inside my apartment, like many of us. We had just raised, or we're finishing raising our Series B at that point and had to hire 50 people. At which point I decided to say to Jeremiah, I don't like living here anymore. I don't know where I want to live. So I bought a car, just a Subaru, and decided to live in my car and travel all across the country where I didn't know a soul. I didn't know how to camp, couldn't set up a tent. So I slept in national parks. I made friends all across the country, mostly with climbers, picked up that. And so basically, kind of like how I went to Asia, I don't know, I just wasn't happy in DC. And so I just blew it all up, lived in a car for about a year, eventually found a wonderful mountain home with some friends in Colorado. And so what I find grounding now is just knowing that I was okay giving up a life where I was like 5 out of 10 happy. Prefect was really the only thing I felt like I had in DC. And knowing now that I've explored lots of corners, I've met so many incredible people, and my life feels more of like a 10 out of 10. So knowing that I did all that hard work to change myself, meet people, and that bleeds into my professional life, because as I'm more and more confident in my personal life, like trying to climb a pitch of El Cap and doing things that are scary and climbing, trying to make new friends and new communities, understanding how different cultures form in towns across the US, like all that feeds very directly into my professional life. So when we acquired that company that I'd mentioned, the day before, I had just climbed this climb that I was too scared to do and couldn't do it for like 2 months. And I finally made the climb. My brain goes, oh, Sarah, you can climb this. You can totally acquire this company.
If you could pull your 20-something-year-old self up when you were in a moment of loss and probably at that first job at BBR Partners, what would you tell yourself about the future and how to take steps differently now that you know what the future looks like?
I think at every step, I would have just encouraged myself to avoid inertial thinking a little earlier. But I think of it, inertial thinking is doing things just because that's what you should do, or that's the way they've been done, which is like a lazier way to think. At every step where I've blown everything up, it's because I've been trying to avoid inertial thinking once I got to a breaking point. I wish that younger me knew that there's not only one option, there's many, many ways to live life. There's many different things that people value in life. So really just take a step back and don't rush into things because it's the easy thing to do.
We're going to jump into rapid fire. How do you define success?
If I'm growing and if I feel happy inside, of course, at a company, it's a little different. There's metrics and whatever. But for me, if I feel like it's right, then I'm successful. And I try not to overthink it and use logic. I try to go more based on feeling in that respect.
Dream job as a child?
It was just to be a lawyer because both my parents are lawyers and everyone in my family is a lawyer. And I literally didn't know that other jobs existed.
What's your path not taken?
Oof, I could see New York City finance person, which is a fine path. Or honestly, someone who just went to Asia, never came back, like lives in a bungalow, just like works in a small shop. It's probably the other one.
If you could switch jobs with anyone, what job would you be doing?
Back when we had astronauts, going into space would be really cool.
Oh, okay. Remote or in person?
Like I will never be the person who reports into an office every day, but I do get a lot of energy from actually seeing people in real life, their body language and all that good stuff.
I feel weird asking you this question because I don't know that you actually work at a desk, but item on your desk that you can't live without.
My company has all these little blue rubber ducks. They're like our mascot. Engineers like rubber ducks because sometimes to solve a problem, you just got to speak out loud, and you can speak out loud to space, or you can just speak out loud to a duck. And I actually had one taped to my dashboard. I still do when I drove across the country. So I always had a duck with me.
What word grates on you?
Should. I hate it. Don't tell me we should do this. Are you going to do it or not? What's your real opinion?
Would you have play you in a movie?
Easy choice here is Julia.
Right. What is the company on your resume that has turned the most heads, or said differently, what company makes other companies and recruiters want to talk to you?
It's probably ICONIQ. It's pretty prestigious in the VC and like family office community. It's well connected among tech investors. But my favorite job that I don't have on there that I should actually put, which I guess is relevant now, but I was officially a cat cuddler at the animal shelter. I volunteered there for a summer and the official job description was cat cuddler. So I'd play with the cats when they clean their cages, and it was awesome. It was like my dream. That's my dream job.
Label 3 jobs: love, ultimate fun, skip.
I'd skip the first job. Whatever the Mary option was that you're with forever is Prefect. The ICONIQ one was also fun because I was like young in New York City, like mid-20s.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much. It's been so fun to spend time with you. Thank you for sharing openly. And I'm really glad you took the leap and listened to those Marines and took that COO job.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you having me so much. And I love the theme of this podcast. It's easy for me to sit here, now someone where I consider myself successful, and say, yeah, every step of this way was totally intentional. No, it was very chaotic, very confusing. Many tears were shed all along. But I'm really happy that I am where I am today and that I could be on this podcast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Effing Up. I'm your host, Deanne Reiner. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe on the platform you use to listen to podcasts. Share Effing Up with others, post about it on social media, and or leave a rating and review. Until next time, count your perceived failures as part of your path to success. After all, we're all effing up.